On what is actually the second Sunday after Christmas, we're jumping the gun by a day and celebrating the readings from Epiphany, which is tomorrow in reality. I'm doing this because we don't have a separate Epiphany service, and we made the decision last year to close our fall stewardship program with the wise men bringing their gifts to the Christ child. So too, in a few moments, we will bring our 3 gifts of time, talent, and treasure this morning when we turn in our pledge cards and offer them to Jesus. Both Gospels have a great reversal in them when it comes to the birth of Jesus. Luke, who is the Gospel for this year, has a great reversal to start off the Christmas story. It is shepherds, the lowest on the social ladder, to whom the angels appear. They are the first to recognize and spread the word about the newborn king. Luke's gospel is all about the last and the least being the most important. Matthew's story is quite different. It's about kings, astrologers, priests. The powerful are the people around which Matthew's story and his gospel is centered. But the reversal in Matthew's gospel as well is it is outsiders, very possibly Zoroastrians from Persia, from the east, astrologers, wise men, magi, whatever you want to call them, that come in search of the baby born king of the Jews. And the reaction to their arrival in Jerusalem is panic by Herod and the religious leaders. The wise men, more correctly called magi, do not arrive at the stable. You'll notice that they come to the house where the child and Mary are staying. We also have a hint that this happens sometime later because the Song of Simeon Luke speaks of Jesus being a light to the Gentiles, and the Magi are Gentiles. So they are the fulfillment of Simeon's prophecy, which he makes when Jesus is presented at the temple in Jerusalem several days after his birth. Many speculate that it may have been as long as 2 years after Jesus' birth before the Magi arrived. We think this because the Magi leave and go home by another way, and we hear that Herod kills all the children 2 years old and younger, not just newborn infants. What do we know about them? Magi of this importance would not have traveled alone. We do not know that there were 3 of them. We only know that there were 3 gifts. They would have had servants, a whole retinue, if you will. Think of the way any famous person today travels. Think in terms of a president or vice president or one of the kings or queens of England. They don't go and just by themselves. There's a lot of people with them. So all of this people walk up to Herod, and they know about the birth. But it seems that Herod and the chief priests and scribes don't know. As often happens in Matthew, they quote Scripture. Scripture says the child will be born in Bethlehem of Judea. Now, King of the Jews was Herod's official title, and you can imagine, faced with this caravan of Gentiles looking for a new king, how upsetting this might have been to Herod. He was a pretty weak king, by the way, and always being threatened. So he was a nervous king. But Jesus, of course, isn't that kind of king, and Herod had nothing to fear from him. It's another of the great reversals of Matthew's gospel. The Magi come because they are wise, educated men who read in the sky that something special has happened in the next country. They travel to see what great act of God the star signals. They come without any preconceived notions about what they would find other than the star was the sign of the birth of a leader, possibly a king. Regardless of song, we do not know how many there were, nor do we know their names until 500 years later, when the Venerable Bede, the early church historian, declares that there are 3, and their names were Caspar, Balthazar, and Melchior. There are many legends regarding the Magi, and the details, while interesting, really aren't that important. The gifts are significant for what they symbolize, not that there are 3. Gold is offered to a king that is a political leader, since it represents wealth and power. Frankincense is used for incense, which signifies a religious leader. Myrrh is used as an ointment for healing, which symbolizes a healer. Some legends say that the gifts were brought with the plan that the child would pick one, and that would tell them what kind of leader they would be. One variation of the legend says that Jesus chose all 3. By the way, reaching out to grab something is not something an infant does. Been reminded of that with a granddaughter who's only 6 months old and just beginning to grasp for things. Another indication it might have been not right on December 25th. While the Magi are somewhat afterthoughts for us, for Orthodox Christians in the Middle East, especially Iraq, Iran, the Persian area, they are very important. Many of the Eastern religions focus not on Christmas, but on Epiphany as their major holiday. The gifts are exchanged today on January 6th, tomorrow, rather than December 25th. But we can get hung up in the details and miss the bigger picture. All the stories we hear speak of the inbreaking of God into our world, as Epiphany is a revelation or an inbreaking of a deity into the world or a sudden insight into the essential meaning of something, often through something commonplace. Birth of Jesus fits that very well. It is a revelation of something wondrous in a very normal way. The story is not about kings. We're not called to believe in the three kings or even believe that they exist at all. The details are not important. The mystery is the point. That God at that moment in time broke into our world with something unique and powerful to change humanity forever. We're called to believe that God became man in a particular place and in a particular time. God did this incredible act because we could not see what was true about God. Richard Rohr once wrote, "We cannot attain the presence of God because we are already in the presence of God. What's absent is awareness." Let me read that again. We cannot attain the presence of God because we're already in the presence of God. What's absent is awareness. The awareness that God is always with us in all places, in all ways, at all times. Always has and always will. We just need to pay attention. It's our challenge to become aware. That is in part what the incarnation is about. Emmanuel, God with us, is the hymn we sang during Advent. This is what Jesus came to show us in the incarnation, to reconcile God and man, but not by blood sacrifice, but by incarnation. However, we need to remember God is with us all the time, even today. We just need to have our eyes open to see God. We will all find our way to the manger of the house or wherever we encounter Jesus and God. The path is not important as the journey that gets us to Christ. We also often forget that the Magi left the house and went home by another way, and I suspect, like the shepherds, told many people about what they had seen. The question today, or the first one to ponder, is what will you do when you walk out the door today as we end the Christmas season? Because if we encounter God in any form and there is no change, no transformation, then we really haven't been paying attention. So what will you take away from the manger this morning? More importantly, this morning, as we make our gifts to Jesus in St. Paul's, we need to remember these gifts are what make our mission to spread this gospel that the shepherds spread, that the Magi spread, that our predecessors have spread. These gifts make it possible. It's what we do to fulfill our mission to bring to Katy and our greater community. We have much to do in our community and much we are called to do. The only thing that limits us is resources, and our treasure is one of those resources, along with time and talent. But to be honest, our stewardship program at this point in time is about financial resources. We always have to focus on that at one point in time. I do not have our final figures for 2024, but I do know that we did have a good increase in December. More details about that when we have our annual meeting in a couple of weeks. Now we need to carry that forward in our pledges so that we pick up from where we left off in December and don't fall back to the point where I'm back to you in June or September or December and going, help, let's do it now ahead of time, because I don't like asking for it any more than you like hearing about it. I found a poem many years ago, and I often end the Christmas season with it, and it fits into both the story of the Magi and of our pledge campaign. This is the reason for the season. You see people have those signs out. The reason, remember the reason for the season. I think this is the reason for the season. It's the poem, The Mood of Christmas by Howard Thurman. Many of you know it. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, and the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock. The work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nation, to bring peace among people, to make music in the heart. The work of Christmas is our mission and call to serve God. Most important, I believe that we are called to believe we can make a difference in those huge tasks that are the work of Christmas. We can do these things bit by bit, little by little. And because of that, what you pledge makes a difference. Now, as we sing the hymn, We Three Kings, which is hymn number 128, I invite you to come forward and place your pledge offerings in the basket. It does. 92, it's impressive. Very cute.